Wuthering Waves is getting darker and darker by the day. Renacita was honestly just a prelude. For a lot of people, they thought that Renacita might have been, too bright and colorful. And toward the beginning, that was the theory, right? I was saying, however, that it feels like this is just a prelude to things and that there's like an undercurrent of dark and gruesome stuff going on. Turns out I was right. Well, I think that undercurrent is actually starting to rise to the surface now. Even as early as 3.1, we were starting to get some really dark themes. Nihilism with iMyth, and it's not like this was the first time. I mean, shout out to 2.5 with Verlova. But like I said, it's just getting darker and darker the further along the road that we get. In my personal opinion, I think Kuro is actually trying to prepare us for something. The stakes are rising, and I think there's some gruesome realities that they're just kind of warming the audience up to. The further we get in the story, the closer we get to whether it be Ashinahara or the New Federation, or even maybe like Ming Zhou. But with all that being said, this is going to be a review of the 3.3 Part 2 story. Clearly, spoiler warning. Here's your warning now, and let's get into it. I want to first start off with something that a lot of people are noticing, and those are the parallels between Denia and iMyth. And it's really interesting because these parallels are actually going to point to another parallel that tells the entire story of what it looks like they're trying to do with Wuthering Waves. You see, the thing about Denia and iMyth are that they kind of are around the same age, essentially. They grew up around, in similar situations. But what's really interesting is that, you see a person like iMyth and you think to yourself, what would have happened if Rover never saved her? Now, realistically speaking, she probably would not be with us anymore because she fell into the Ganungamir, which is the lake that had void matter corruption at the bottom of it. Yeah, she probably wasn't going to get it out of there. But just go with me for a second. What if she somehow didn't fall in there? Based on what we see with Denia, what if the Fraxidus, because we know that they were operating in Lahairoi for a very long time, what if they found her as a kid? What if that was the situation, right? What we are seeing with Denia is this is what happens, and it's sad to say it this way, but this is what happens when Rover is not present. Everything kind of goes haywire. And it's not to say that like there's nothing that can be done and that nobody's powerful, that everybody's just helpless without Rover. But it is just the case that, sometimes things happen. And if those things did happen while Rover was there, or truth be told, anybody, but Rover is a little bit unique in that they are kind of like a really powerful nomad, whereas everybody else has to kind of stay in their own location because they have their own stuff to worry about. That's kind of the benefit that Rover has, where because Rover is roving, Rover can help many people in many situations that might not necessarily be accounted for. So why is this parallel so important, and how does it connect to another parallel? The Cyberpunk collab is coming up. I am trying to save as much as I humanly can, and part of the reason is because I'm trying to get an S6 out of technically both of the characters. I've been saving for like 6 months, but I'm kind of like just on the edge of having enough. With that being said, one of the places that I'm going to be going to help me with that is the sponsor for this video. The sponsor for this video is BuffBuff. BuffBuff is a top-up service that now supports direct player top-up. They're safe, reliable, and instant, and they offer great discounts. Top up Lua directly on BuffBuff and enjoy secure, instant, and discounted recharge deals. You can find my referral link in the description as well as the pinned comment. It is something that I have done. It is safe. I've done it myself. I'm not just saying it. And that is what I'm going to be using to ease the toll of trying to get these characters to S6. Honestly, Wuthering Waves doesn't make it easy to skip. It really doesn't. So with all that being said, thank you once again to the sponsor of the video, BuffBuff. And thank you to you all for constantly and just in general being awesome and supporting the channel. Back to the video. The other parallel that it connects to is with Hiyuki. We saw in the 3.3 part 1, Hiyuki was kind of feeling a little bit jealous about the situation with Rover. Just the fact that she's not as strong as Rover, and not because she just wants to beat Rover, but because she has people that she wants to protect. And the Grand Architect did a really good job of like trying to like dig into Hiyuki and, you know, kind of get into her head, because the reality is this is what happens when you have someone who's as strong as Rover in these situations. The difference between a place like Jinzhou or Rinasita and a place like Ashinohara, had, Ashinohara had Rover or a Rover, someone like Rover, then their situation might not have been the same, right? Hanami would still be there in theory, not gone, it wouldn't have disappeared off the map. And so we're kind of seeing what's happening with all these places. Yeah, the places that we've been so far seem like they're doing pretty decently, right? But you have to remember there are a lot of places in Solaris 3, and Rover can't be everywhere at once. And I personally feel like we're going to be going into places like that pretty soon, actually. Like, I have a feeling that we're eventually going to be going to more places that Rover could not have been there for. And, this 20-year gap where it seems like everything went haywire, right? It was not so long ago, even when Rinasita was at war. So it's very likely that we will be going to some places in the near future where Rover could not get to those places in time. And we're just going to see, like I said, this kind of gruesome and dark reality play out. Now, what else did we learn? We also learned quite a bit about everybody's favorite narcissist, I guess, the Grand Architect. Yeah, this one was rough. This one was actually very rough. The Grand Architect, there's no redeeming them at this point. Not that I was hoping they would be redeemed, but there's literally none at this point. They kidnapped a child, Denia. They kidnapped a child, tortured her. And what was worse, what's even worse than that, is, if it's not bad enough, right? What's worse is that there's this line, where they basically tell us, she says that the Grand Architect was telling her that she was taking painkillers. In reality, they were not painkillers. They were basically I guess a placebo in essence. It was saline. She was taking saline under the assumption that they were painkillers. And not even just that, when you read the section on the medical table, it tells you that she was also, had sedatives. So they're doing these experiments. They're not really sedating her, and she's feeling this pain, and they're also not helping her in that way. It is like they are intentionally trying to screw her up to the nth degree. Was all that really necessary? In my personal opinion, it really feels like they were just trying. It was just being petty, really. And I mean, we've seen the Navora variant of the Grand Architect being petty, but this was just another level. It's sick. It's literally sick in the head. There's no other way to describe it, honestly. And so, yeah. We also learned that the Grand Architect's abilities, now this is toward the end, but we learned a little bit about the Grand Architect's abilities, that they have to be able to actually see a person and analyze them for a solid amount of time before they can do the little shape-shifting thing. We also learned that the shape-shifting is not their true ability. It's a derivative of whatever their ability is. And it's interesting because there's a parallel here with Aleph 1, actually. So in a previous video, I was having a discussion with the voice actor for Carthea and Wuthering Waves, Amanda Rochelle. And in that conversation, and that can be found right here, or right there, in that conversation, I basically was saying, okay, or the question was asked to me, how did Aleph 1 in 3.3 part 1 create that red mech? Well, when you look at the description of the red mech, it actually kind of explains to you that Aleph 1 kind of has this ability to almost like Uno reverse situations, kind of like a no you situation, where if it sees something, it's kind of like a copycat, where it can basically create a void version of whatever. And we kind of saw this with the void worm, right? Where the void worm was really just void matter contaminated exostrider parts. And so in a similar vein, when we think about derivative abilities, right? Because obviously Aleph 1, behaves like a black hole, can absorb frequencies and doing all this stuff, but it also seems to have other abilities, right? And so, and that's something we're probably going to get in the future with the game as well, where these abilities are kind of large, kind of general abilities, kind of like One Piece in a way, where you have a general concept, like with Luffy, where you like, rubber, but then you see all these different forms that Luffy can have that allow him to fight in different ways, because these are like derivatives. So apparently the whole mimicry thing is a derivative ability of their actual ability. The other really cool thing is I made a video where I basically talk about the philosophy of the Grand Architect. And I explained there that my theory about the architect's true identity. Now, I go over quite a few things in that video. Definitely check it out if you have not. But one of the things I actually go over is the true identity of the Grand Architect and how I believe the Grand Architect is actually a woman. I also explain who that woman is, or who I believe the woman is. With that being said, I think we are all but confirmed at this point that the Grand Architect is a woman. Denia tells us that when Denia references the Grand Architect and this ability to shapeshift, right? Denia calls the Grand Architect a her. She says her true forte. So if you already acknowledge that this person shapeshifts from, he to she, guy to girl, what have you, you probably wouldn't be saying the exact gender of the person. You would just say they, right? Because you're like, you don't really know what they are. So it's just like, okay. However, she didn't. She said her true forte. So that to me, and there are a couple other lines that showed it as well, that to me is telling me that, yeah, like the Grand Architect actually is a she. So that was like a nice little moment of discovery and excitement for myself personally. But yeah, all in all, we learned a nice little bit about the Grand Architect. They seem to have some eternal grudge against Rover, because Denia says that the Grand Architect is basically Rover's, biggest enemy, essentially, and that they are rivals of some sort. So this doesn't seem like some petty little grudge. This seems like something from way back in the day. So I'm looking forward to finding out more about that as well. With that being said, let's actually go back to Denia. More specifically, just her overall situation is just very sad. It's very sad. She is someone who really never had a life. She never had a life. Everything was fake. She just made up things in reality. Made up her personality. And it's really disheartening, honestly, when you see some of the videos and things that have been posted on the official sources in terms of like how she interacts with the world. Because it's like everything you see is just like, you don't really know what's real and what's not. And in a lot of ways, she might not even know what's real and what's not. There's moments where she's excited or showing excitement, but it looks like she had to like think about, oh, what's the best emotion to show at this time? And it's really disheartening. It puts you in a very strange situation of like how to feel about this person. I mean, for all intents and purposes, she was groomed, right? She was groomed by the Grand Architect. And what I found actually very saddening from the EP, and this was the EP, the name is, I believe, Descendus ad Nihilum. And in the EP, you see this section where the lyrics are basically explaining how good it feels for her to pretend, because I presume it's kind of like Lene, honestly, in a way, where Lene would rather pretend to be someone else because she could be free at the academy than go back to where she was. And you can see that with Denia as well. She would prefer to pretend to have emotions than to be with getting experimented on, obviously, and feeling pain. And it's kind of like I think there's like an emo rock song, and somebody, if you know, you can say it in the comments, where it's just like, I'd rather feel pain than nothing at all, right? Well, I think in this regard, she's saying, I'd rather pretend than feel nothing at all. The moment in the story with Sigrika, with Nastasha, like the Nastasha situation with her hand and her dream kind of being seemingly taken away from her. And obviously she feels responsible for this. And then with Sigrika, we see this really, really unfortunate reality, right? Where her and Sigrika are just like having a normal conversation, but oh my gosh, the amount of this patch was like the king of facial expressions, because there were so many facial expressions and like micro expressions that would tell you like a lot, you know. And I mean, and look, Goat Rika, right? Goat Rika. I am a Goat Rika fan, and yeah, it was very, very sad to see just that moment between the two of them. You know, you go do those files, Sigrika. Like that was the nail in the coffin, and Sigrika was just like, I like how, you know, I really appreciate the maturity of the characters. She's just like, you know what, if you want me to play dumb, okay, I will, but just answer this one question for me: will I be able to spend your next birthday with you? And you know, she even peeped with Rover, right? Peeped the whole Rover trying to uh change the subject, diffuse the situation, move on, what have you. And she's like, you talk just like Dr. Luke, Dr. Herson. And I was like, man, she's picking up. And you know, that's why Denia is just like, of all the times to be perceptive, why now? So yeah, it definitely got me in the feels. It got me in the feels. And I think, speaking of feels, that leads us to the kind of like the explaining the final part of the story where Denia leaves us. One of the questions that I was getting asked on stream was why? Why did she leave? And the reason she left is because she felt she had to, and I do kind of understand why she felt she had to. So apparently Denia was housing, and I presume this is a part of the experiment, right, that they do. So we kind of learn that there's a requirement to do this experiment, right? Which makes sense. I have no idea how the Grand Architect is able to like just get audiences with Threnodians. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. But apparently the Grand Architect can get audiences with Threnodians. And when the Grand Architect did that, they seemingly got a fragment of the Threnodian, and they placed that fragment inside of Denia. And so, you know, she's like on these like anti-rejection pills and things of that nature. Now, I think those are real because those are obviously something to aid the Fraxidus and the Grand Architect's goals. But so yeah, it's like that fragment is very similar to the fragment that Cristoforo had, the gem essentially, right? That had Leviathan's power in it. And because of that, they're able to use this assimilation ability to assimilate Threnodian parts with people, right? And so that's what she had inside of her. And so what she was basically telling us is that that fragment, if it were to be taken out of her, which I think that was the goal, to, you know, reverse this situation with her, like take the fragment out so that way she can go back to normal. So she doesn't have to be tormented in this way and you know, have this connection with Aleph One. That's what it seems like Rover was trying to hint at, probably trying to get her to come to the Black Shores. I'm telling you, it's just like One Piece. Just like, you join my crew, you join my crew, everybody joins my crew. And so basically that's what was happening. And so she said if that fragment ever came out, that fragment was essentially like an anchor for Aleph One. And so even before it comes out, it kind of acted as an anchor, like a way to kind of help connect Aleph One to Solaris still. But if something had ever happened to where it did come out, then Aleph One and that fragment, like they would have been drawn to one another. And it basically would have helped Aleph One just come right back here, right? So she took it upon herself, and this is where we get back to those like Imeth sort of parallels. Essentially kind of her way of saving the world, where she basically just said, this thing is like a ticking time bomb and I'm just gonna get it out of here. And on her way out, what looked to be the case was that she was absorbing, she's like, what I can do for you all is I'll just absorb I think she basically absorbed all the void matter. She's like all the negativity, and maybe that even had something to do with the dark side of the academy potentially. But she's just absorbing all this negativity because, yeah, like that's what Aleph One's powers are able to do, is like absorb frequencies. And so she was probably just absorbing it all. And then that's when she basically said peace, and she's in void space, it seems now. We could see in that, you know, uh image, or, you know, the little slideshow thing where it basically shows her that it looks like she's in the bulk area, which is similar to where Imith was in void space. That's kind of where she is. And the reality of the situation is there's really not the only possible way to get her back is by defeating Aleph 1. But to defeat Aleph 1, you either bring Aleph 1 back to Solaris or you go to see Aleph 1. So I'm gonna be honest, I don't foresee her being part of anything for a very long time, honestly. And then the question remains, you know, if you how you do it has to be done delicately because she's in void space. So you'd have to go back into void space and then fish her out and then defeat Aleph 1. Because if you just defeat Aleph 1, right, you completely defeat the Drenodian, then she's like, you know, quote unquote free, right? You can get rid of the shard, it won't even matter anymore at that point. But the problem there is, what does that mean for her? Because if you get rid of the Therodian, is she just going to be like some girl just stuck in space? So it's going to be a very delicate situation depending on how all of that plays out. I mean, as I said in the beginning, I think Kuro is trying to slowly but surely point us in a direction that they are trying to move the story. Things are getting darker. We saw it first with Frolova, now we're seeing it with Denia. Yes, technically people in Solaris are frequencies, and as we saw, there is still room for frequencies to exist, right? But we also saw in 3.3, which is a little bit of a revelation even to myself, it looks like it was possible for those frequencies, even that were in void space, to burn out, basically, right? So even though the frequencies are still persisting, so when somebody dies on Solaris, they're still technically, they can still exist in frequency form, but like their souls. But then, like I said, in 3.3, part 1, we saw in the cutscene with, you know, when they made the space coordinates, their frequencies were burning out. And I don't actually know what happens. Is that like complete darkness then? Is it over at that point? No more, nothing? But like I said, I think Frolova, Denia, all of these things are kind of like warming us up to the fact that we probably are going to see probably a lot more deaths as things go further. Because I think we have to be very mindful, like, yeah, technically there are frequencies, but they still experience death. You know, that's not like a fun thing to do. So yeah, all in all, I think this is a really good patch. I don't really do like review scores like 9 out of 10, 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10. I mean, I can, but it's just hard to really encapsulate everything. All in all, I'll just say that it was a really solid patch. It was very short, very sweet, but very impactful and very condensed in terms of the amount of information. Storytelling was very tight. And I'm just blown away. Like I said, the animations were good, the music was good, and we have a lot to look forward to. So you all let me know what you all thought of the story. If there's anything that I was able to help elucidate you on, by all means. As always, you know, let me know in the comments what you think. Also want to say thank you again to the sponsor of the video, Buff. The link will be in my description. You guys can get some discounts on your pulls, whether you're trying to get Denia or if you are trying to get the Cyberpunk collab characters. You can, you know, start saving up now and get your Astrite. Lunite. Anyway, thank you all so much for coming through, and I will see you all on the next one. And hey, look, we're in a new location, right? Life Lessons Yaps. So like I said, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you are new to me as a whole, I have this channel where I do discussions and things of that nature. I have my other channel, Life Lessons Gaming, where I do more high effort type videos. So you can definitely check that out. I have a whole lore playlist that will also be in the description and the pinned comment. Until next time, I will catch you all. Peace.
Hey, you. Do the thing.